Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, getting ready to start my day and get my squats and everything going. I did a real sip for you guys. Now, a lot of people are like, I don't think you're actually drinking coffee. Why are you drinking water? So I've been accused of fake sipping. Been accused. You guys see that? You see it's brown in there? That's real coffee. It's real coffee. Of course, what's going to happen, my detractors are going to say, he's lying. It's decaf. It's decaf. It's not real coffee. He's a liar. All right, but on to the point, guys. Let's talk a little bit about bracing, tightness, bar speed, all this stuff, how it affects muscle activation, because this is an important topic when we're talking about putting on size and strength. It's a really important topic. And I thought it was interesting, and I thought I'd bring this back up because it's stuff I've mentioned off and on but haven't put in exact terms. Now, some people are going to say, and they're going to jump up, are you taking this from Bugenhagen? Because he talked about the radiant effect the other day. Guys, I've been talking about the radiant effect for 5 years. I think one of the first mentions I had of it on my channel was back when I had strength and conditioning coach CJ Allen. I did an interview with him, about 4 or 5 years ago? Something like that. Sounds about right. Over on this channel, when he was talking about the radiant effect going through different muscles. And specifically, we were talking about, I think at some point, he and I were talking about this because I got in a debate with like Sunny and McCarthy. They were arguing that the biceps femoris and the hamstring doesn't get activated on the deadlift, right? Doesn't get activated on the deadlift because the way it inserts, it requires bending of the knee, basically, right? You need flexion of the knee to fully activate that head. But we kind of get to the point of when you're dealing with tightness and explosiveness, if you get tight on a lift or you're gripping bars tightly and things like that, you do get a radiant effect to where other parts of a muscle get activated, right? They get activated even if they're not always the primary mover on that specific movement because they insert a different way. And they actually do get some growth stimulation. And it may not be maximum stimulation, but they do activate, they do engage. So when we're talking about stuff like radiant effect, there's different ways that you can achieve that. Part of it, is the whole bar speed thing I had been talking about. Like we've seen all this data showing that the faster and more explosively you move a weight with good form, the more total muscle activation you get in all the muscles there, that it actually beats the mind-muscle connection. All right, we've discussed that in detail. There have been numerous studies that have been done on that recently, at least one major one where we found that. So we know that you get more complete muscle activation in every muscle in an exercise when you lift a weight explosively but still controlled versus slower and controlled. So in other words, you're going to get more of a radiant effect there as well. In other words, when you lift a weight explosively with the triceps, particularly like, let's say, most presses, most chest presses, whether it's dips, bench press, things like that, you tend to work the lateral and medial head the most, with the long head getting neglected because part of its activity has to do with shoulder extension, right? It needs to get that stretch, which is why things like chin-ups and pull-ups tend to work it because it gets stretched at the bottom in that extended position. But if you lift a weight more explosively, you tend to get a larger radiant effect through the entire muscle and in even muscles around it because there's a neuromuscular efficiency component happening there. And that's a good thing for gains. If you're trying to gain muscle mass, getting more muscle fiber recruitment through every muscle you're training and even through your whole body is a desirable thing for achieving maximum muscle growth. Again, so we kind of get back into that idea of people need to not think about the body in terms of body parts. You need to be thinking about how can I make everything grow, and then maybe worry about weak points as an afterthought, right? Because if you're trying to get big and strong, you need to get big and strong everywhere, and you need to stop thinking in terms of bicep. Stop thinking in terms of just lats. You need to be thinking in terms of total muscle activation. Right, you want to be recruiting everything. That's why big exercises are so good at stacking muscle on you. But then we come to other things like bracing and tightness. And again, CJ talked about that at that time. And I know another author who's talked about that with the radiant effect in detail in books is someone like Pavel Tausolin. Right, he noted that the harder you brace your core, the harder you grip a bar, things like that, the more total muscle activation you get. And for people not familiar with him, he's a Russian strength coach who came over to America, got popularized, wrote some books. Pavel Towseley. And I think one of his most popular one was called The Naked Warrior. He's also the guy who came up with the whole greasing the groove protocol, for those who remember that. But he talked about that a lot with that radiant effect happening. And then I think Boogs brought it up the other day talking about the belt, because here's the point we get into. We know this based upon data, that when you have any sort of pressing movement or pulling movement where you grip the bar, the harder you grip the bar, the higher your neuromuscular efficiency goes. In other words, it causes you to recruit more muscle fibers through the whole body, and in some cases it can help you recruit more of the upper threshold muscle fibers in all the primary movers. In other words, the harder you grip the bar, you can get more muscle activation through a radiant effect, and it will tend to cause more activation, say on a press, between everything, because that harder gripping increases your neuromuscular efficiency through your peripheral nervous system. Well, the same thing can be said with bracing your core. So in other words, taking a deep breath on exercises and bracing your abdominals, bracing your core before you do a big lift can improve neuromuscular efficiency. Yes, it will improve stability, right? It can improve stability because it can help, again, keep your torso in a better fixed position and keep you in a better bar path so you get better leverages. But there is also a neuromuscular component with that bracing, and it has to do with that radiant effect, because the core is now being activated strongly, and therefore that's going to radiate to other muscles through the body. And that's what people mean by that. So when we start talking about things like getting really tight on an exercise, bracing your core, gripping bars harder, what you are achieving with that is a radiant effect through the body. Yeah, you're going to improve overall neuromuscular efficiency, but it's going to help you recruit more total muscles. It's going to let you lift more weight for the same number of reps or for a 1 rep max. It's going to recruit more muscle fibers through the body. So if your goal is to get stronger, there's enormous benefits there, right? Because the more muscle fibers you can train your body to utilize at once, the easier it's going to be for you to get stronger. In other words, any lift in which you want to get strong on, even if you're trying to keep it in a strict form without cheating, the more muscles you can utilize, the more weight you're going to lift. Then we come over to the point of the primary movers, because that's a lot of times what people are doing. Well, these things will cause a higher neuromuscular efficiency, which means you're going to activate motor units in those muscles more quickly. Well, again, for most people, it should follow pretty easy. It should be common sense. The more muscle fibers you can recruit, the more activity you can get in a muscle you're trying to make grow, the better your chances are that you're going to stimulate maximum growth. It's not guaranteed, but it's going to greatly enhance the chances. So there is absolutely something to be said for this. And then we get over to that point about that radiant effect, which is a splashover effect. If you can get your neuromuscular efficiency as high as possible, in 1 or 2 heads of a muscle, it will carry over in these cases potentially to the heads that don't get worked as much. So again, let's talk about something like side delts that don't get worked as heavily during something like a press or a row or a chin-up, right? But if you can learn to grip the bar harder, if you can brace harder, if you can lift it more explosively with good technique, you will get more carryover. You tend to get that radiant effect. So things like the side delt might get more activation. Things like the other third head on the hamstring might get more activation on a Romanian deadlift or a conventional deadlift. All right, so that's kind of the whole point, is that if we're going to achieve maximum muscle activation, it will tend to recruit more fibers through that effect through these other parts of the body, which is going to, again, start to remove the need to try to come through and isolate certain things. You're going to develop fewer weak points in the muscles that you're trying to develop. You're going to, because those other areas of it are going to get more activation. It might not be enough to maximize them, and even if you are going to go through and do some weak point training later, you're going to need less of it. And that's a take home there, because at the end of the day, we need to have exercise economy. The more time we can spend focusing on the exercises that we know we need the most, and we can develop less weak points, the less time we have to spend doing the secondary exercises that do not give you as good of overall results. And that's a big part of this, is with maximum development, maximum strength development, maximum muscular development. Reaching your potential has to do with how efficiently we can do that. And that's an important thing to consider here. It's basically going to allow you to get to your goals more quickly without having to sidetrack and work on other things that need to get caught up as easily. You're going to have to put less effort into that, which is a very valuable thing as far as your exercise economy, exercise efficiency, things like that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I will talk to you guys next time.